How are you?
I'm good. Sitting here with my puppy. I'm afraid he's going to start snoring, but we'll kind of play it by.
I don't know if I can edit out snoring.
I'll get rid of it if he does.
So, all right.
You're just using the
It's
audio, right?
well, I was going to use the video later on for that's available for my Patreon patrons, but so no, not a
Well,
big deal, man. This is Grant Peters in his most relaxed state, right? Maybe not most relaxed, I don't, but so
that's
no, this is good. It's good.
all right.
So you're still a busy man.
Very busy. Even more busy in this pandemic than I was before in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange, but in a lot of different ways, not just professionally, but just doing stuff at home and then ITG stuff. And ITG got a lot busier when the pandemic started because we had a lot of things to deal with. Uh, it got crazy really, really fast, and I had no idea. But that's part of it. I think that's part of leadership is dealing with things when the wind's not at your back.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and going up for ITG president, I mean, you're not even going to think that anything like this is remotely possible, right? It's going to be smooth sailing. It's
well,
never happened to any ITG president before. What could possibly go wrong?
yeah, that was. I was always thinking it was going to be this just about the mission of ITG and be a visionary and just kind of keep things rolling along. And then that was all very different.
So, now it's going to be marred by, you remember Grant Peters' presidency? It was all about the pandemic. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, is that a 2 year term?
It is a 2 year term. I started October 1st, and this October 1st, obviously my first year, then I'm one more year after that. And so when you're elected, you're president elect for 2 years, president for 2 years, and then past president, kind of an advisory role for 2 years. So it's really a 6 year commitment overall.
Um, but your roles, do they change a whole lot during those 6 years?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's specific duties that are assigned. Like when you're the vice president, you're in charge of a lot of membership committees, and you're in charge of the election, and you're an advisor, obviously. But when you become president, then kind of everything stops with you, and you're kind
Mm-hmm.
of assigning committees and making sure every initiative is being followed through with, and kind of making a lot of decisions. And I think as past president, there's less, I think, responsibilities there, but still,
Mm-hmm.
you're somebody who's done it, and I relied a lot on Kathy Leach,
Of
and
course. Yeah.
and a lot of all the past presidents are always willing to get on the phone and talk to me and help me out. And there's a lot of them out there that I can count on. Of course, I've got
Yeah.
Jason Burton as my vice president, who's absolutely great.
What a
And
sharp guy, right?
yeah, very sharp guy, and I can always bounce stuff off of him. And the cool thing about him is if I lay some idea on him and he thinks it's ridiculous, he'll tell me. I appreciate that. I mean, we need more straight shooters in this business that aren't afraid to hurt your feelings
Right.
for the right reason. So
Right.
that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I've asked this question at from anybody, but how old were you when you got involved with ITG?
I was, I think, a sophomore or a junior in undergrad. I did my undergrad at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing an education degree, and my teacher there at the time was Dennis Schneider. And people know him as Denny Schneider. He's gone now, but he was really big early on in ITG, and he used to tell us all about. He'd get his ITG journal and he'd read it cover to cover the day he got it. We thought, man, what a geek! I can't believe it. And so, we kind of learned about it. And then one summer, my buddies said, hey, the ITG, I think it was in, I don't know if it was 85 or 86. I think my first one was in Albuquerque, though. And a bunch of my buddies said, my dad's going to let us use his kind of custom van at the time. And six of us piled into that thing and drove from Lincoln, Nebraska to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I think Jeff Piper was hosting. And from then on, I was in, absolutely in. I guess I was probably 21 maybe or 20, whatever
Yeah.
you were when you're, maybe, yeah, maybe 20. Um, it changes the way you feel about ITG. And I still say to people, even though they're a member, unless you've been at a conference, you can't truly understand what ITG is really about. Being at that conference and seeing how everyone is all these great artists and students and And weekend warriors who just play in their garage every now and then, they're all on an equal level and they're all talking to each other and they're all helping each other out. And that's really what the organization is about. There are a lot of aspects about ITG that are really of value, but that for me is the one thing that best describes what ITG is. And you can tell people about it all you want, but until you're there, it's hard to understand. I think you understand that.
I do, and I'm thinking back. I was in Hershey, San Antonio, and Miami, and the hang for all three of those was it was great. I don't think I made maybe 2 sessions in Miami. Well, I was so busy doing interviews,
Right.
but I mean, truly, and the way that hotel, everybody had to pass through that lobby to get anywhere,
Right.
and it was like all the artists were there. Everybody's coming through. Everybody's willing to sit and have a cup of coffee with everybody and chat. And yeah, man, the vibe was great for that. So I agree. You have to go to understand the value of that.
And you can really make it your own thing. I mean, a lot of people think they're going to be overwhelmed with Trumpet. You can go to as many or as few things as you want to go to. You can pick and choose. Every day we get the schedule out and you kind of check off things you wanted to see and kind of map out how you could get to each one. And some people will go to 20 minutes of one session and dash off to another one and hear a little bit of a recital. And so it's not anything you're locked into. You can really make it exactly what you want it to be. And then half the fun is seeing your friends and hanging out and doing things. That's one of my favorite things about this is I've got 2 really, really close trumpet player buddies. And we see each other probably twice a year, and that's one of the times. And it's a great time to catch up and laugh the whole time.
Yeah, right? And to hear some of the most ridiculous trumpet playing you're ever going to hear.
Yeah, I mean, Miami was incredible.
Yeah.
And I got to play on a concert there, which I had no business even being on stage. Jason and I got to play something after a cancellation. There were some players on that stage that just awe-inspiring, and then you have to walk up there and play something after one of them comes off, and it was a little scary, but still great fun. And I got to hear some players that I'd never heard before. I mean, live too. That's the ridiculous thing is you hear these players live and they sound just like the recordings.
Yeah, right.
That's wild.
Yeah. So, well, this has been great and a lot of fun. I'm glad you gave me some time. No, I'm kidding. We're not done. just seeing if I can keep it light here. So tell me how you've been managing through the pandemic.
In terms of just in general?
What's going on?
Our school, like many, at spring break decided to go online. And I just, pushed through and made it as normal as I possibly could with my students. We all got kind of set up. I could tell that many of them were, uneasy about it, and they didn't have great equipment at home. They didn't have great microphones. I could tell some of them, even though they said they weren't, they were probably doing their Zoom lessons on their phones. The sound wasn't good. So you had to really adapt and find different things to talk about rather than working on refining their sound or listening for articulation. You could tell a lot of things, accuracy, and even rhythm was difficult because sometimes there's a lag in the internet and you can't tell if it skipped ahead or they rushed for 3 hours. So, I did a lot of things, research-oriented things with them, made them start learning things on the internet about players and pieces. And so that was okay. I think we ended up pretty well making recordings and having them learn how to use the technology in a way that represents themselves well. As far as this summer, it's been kind of quiet and it's been very different. Usually I'm off doing clinics and there's ITG and there's traveling. Very little of that happened this year. So obviously, like many people, you dig in and start doing stuff around the house that needs to be taken care of. And that was what I like to do. So I got a lot of things done. Practicing was, like most will tell you, without anything coming up, no gigs, it's hard to stay motivated.
Right.
We're all kind of indoctrinated into having that carrot out there dangling. We got this piece coming up, we're going to play this recital, I got this gig, and things to work on and things to work toward. So all of a sudden you have to think, well, this is just a time to slowly go back and revisit fundamentals. I mean, just ridiculously slow. And I've been doing that, and I encourage my students to do that. I said, there's no tempo that's too slow to play a Clark study. just absolute perfection. Go slow, slow, slow. And a lot of them, I think, have been doing that, and they found that that was really beneficial, and that they didn't
Yeah.
have to be in a hurry. That's another thing that's great.
Yeah, there's nothing like a slow tempo to expose your double tonguing faults and triple tonguing faults, right?
All day to do it, dude. There's just nothing else happening. Um, so I've been playing a lot, just a couple times a day, not for a long period of time, but I'm very regular about it. But now we're starting to get back into school starts Monday. So I was up at school yesterday hearing my students play their auditions, and they all sound pretty good. But of course, a lot of them are in marching band camp, which they're still having, even though our football
Yeah.
team won't play until spring, which is kind of a head scratcher because you think a marching band camp would be the best place for them to be too close together. Um, but that decision is above my pay grade, so we're just going to have to hope for the best. I have a partition, a wooden partition that's 6 feet high by 4 feet wide, with it's a frame basically, and inside it's clear marine vinyl, which is like 20 gauge, real
Mm.
clear, thick uh, vinyl, and I've got that installed in my office now. The
And
kids,
you can hear through that just fine.
oh, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's no
Yeah.
big deal. They come in, they take a right, and they go into the corner, and there's like a fairly large area there with the screen there that blocks out me from the rest, them from the rest of the office, and they'll never venture in any farther than that into my office and stand behind that and play. It does, if they play directly into it, obviously the sound would be affected a little bit, but they can aim a little bit away from that. And that's how we're going to proceed. And I'm hoping we're face to face as long as I can be, because I think if they've made the commitment to come back to campus and they want to be here in person, then I want to be in person for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not terribly scared about this, but I want to take precautions, and I think this gives me some degree of safety. And nothing's guaranteed, so we're
Right.
just doing the best we can, and I want to make it as normal as possible for them, because this is an exhilarating time in their life, and I don't want it to be like, coming into a crime scene where they can't touch anything and they can't go here or there. And so I want to make it fun and exciting for them, and we've got our fingers crossed that we can do that for a while. So, can you hear this guy snoring?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, let me get him out of here.
It's not terrible.
Sorry, he's a big snorer. I guess you can edit that out.
Yes, thankfully I can control a lot of that on this. So, and the funny thing is, most of what I edit out is me. It's like I'm listening back on these edits, and I'm like, I should just shut up sometimes, and get out of the way. But
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I think it's important to get a bunch of the personality of the interviewer too. Brian Beach tends to talk a lot too.
yeah, I like his though. But I like his.
But
Actually, I'll excerpt that and send it to him and say, guess what Grant said about you.
got some cool things to say. I mean, his point of view is obviously really interesting sometimes too.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I like about all this. Brass Junkies is a great podcast. The Other Side of the Bell. It's like they're all great perspectives. We all ask different questions and take different paths, to the end of the interview. But so, so good. You're going back in person. And you mentioned the marching band thing. Here in Indiana, they canceled everything. I mean, there's no marching band at all. And, in Indiana, that's a big deal.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably the smart way to go. My philosophy on all this is, although I want to be back in person, as collectively, we just all need to take a breath and say, we're going to be without some things for a while if we want this to go away. And I'm from Nebraska originally, as I mentioned, and football is king, and the people there are just melting down because there's not going to be football. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I mean, I always know, I love Nebraska football, and it truly is big, but it's just not more important than us getting
Right.
through this thing and getting on with our lives. So, I don't know what the marching band here is going to do. I think they're planning on doing a show on the field every third Thursday or something like that. And then they're going to have a pep band in the stands in the spring when the football team plays. So, like I said, that's not my call. I'm just going to try to keep my head down, teach my students, and stay healthy.
So, aside from the applied, are you doing any trumpet ensemble or quintet coaching?
Occasional quintet coaching. The majority of my students are music ed majors, so they don't really have a exact chamber music requirement in their degree. The performance majors, if I have some, we'll have that, but the other ones don't. So every now and then we have some of the top kids do chamber groups, quintets and stuff like that. So I'll do
Mm,
something, but the majority of my load is applied.
mm,
And I will do a trumpet ensemble. That's another thing this year that's going to be interesting because you have to have space to do that. But they like to do that. I like to. We wanted to maybe attempt to do a recording for NTC this year, but that's all kind of different now too. They've made some adjustments to that, so I'm not sure how it's going to work. But I think chamber music and trumpet ensemble, one and apart, and having students really have to listen to each other. And I don't conduct the trumpet ensemble. I refuse to do that. I said you have to listen to each other and you have to communicate because that's what chamber music is.
wow.
I'll help them every now and then in rehearsal, but I say when you perform, I make the kids, we assign who's going to cue different entrances, and they have to take care of that because that's what chamber music is. So I do a little of that, but yeah, the majority of what I do is applied, and almost all my students are music ed. I think I have one undergraduate performance major, and I have one graduate student performance major right now.
How big's the studio?
Right around 18, and that's
Oh,
what considered full here.
yeah.
I'm sure we'll see when we come back. I think one of my students may not be coming back. Some kids are thinking about taking a year off. Not everyone's comfortable coming back, but I think most of them are coming back. So
Hmm.
that's plenty. I think
Yeah.
that's a full week.
Yeah.
So
Let's take a little bit of a left turn. Go back to talking about you, since this is a Grant Peters interview, right? um, yeah, I was looking at your bio recently, and it's interesting. Dallas brass seems to pop up in an awful lot of bios, um, and that was pretty early on in your career. It looked like.
yeah,
Uh,
I was at University of North Texas doing my master's degree, and I had done, I think, 2 years, just almost finished with my master's. I think all I had left was my qualifying exams or my oral exams or something like that. And the Dallas Brass was based in Dallas at the time. I think it probably still is, but they asked that the word got out that they were looking for a second trumpet player. I think Tim Anderson had recently retired and gone back to teaching. They had someone filling in for the summer. I think it was David Hobbs, and they said we have an opening, and so but we have an audition in Dallas like Monday, and this was like 3 or 4 days away.
no,
And they gave us this book of the whole show that they were doing at the time, and it was a huge amount of music. And
right.
but there were a bunch of us that just I started practicing that. I think I practiced it nonstop until I went down there that day. I was fortunate enough to get the gig, and I toured with them for 9 months through 26 states in Canada.
Wow.
That was probably the most important year of my life as in terms of professional development. And the best part of it was getting to play sitting next to Whiff Rudd for 9 months. Uh, I tell him often that I had two major teachers in my life, but I count him as one of my teachers because, man, standing next to that guy every single night going to battle with him was the best learning experience ever. I mean,
Yeah.
just a model of efficiency, not to mention a really good person,
Yeah.
gentleman. I could learn a lot from that too because I don't know, I can't remember how I was in my early 20s then. And that was a great learning experience. Plus, on the other side of me was Charlie Villarubia, who now teaches too. But
Oh yeah.
that was frightening because that guy was just an absolute. Um, but that was every night having to get out of that van and get up on stage and sometimes playing for 2,500 people for community concerts. You weren't playing heavy brass quintet literature, but you're still standing up playing for 2 solid hours.
Right.
And so that was great to be able to have to get up there and play whether you wanted to or not. Whether your chops felt good, whether you're tired or whatever, you just had to get up and do it. And more times than not, you found that you could pull yourself through it, and then you felt pretty good about it at the end, and kind of learned to overcome anything that was.
Well, I know that book. I actually auditioned for them a handful of years back, and it's not just B flat. There were some D trumpet parts. Now I don't know if they were there when you were there, but I remember having to put those like William Tell Overture, right? I think was
Right. That's one of the ones I had to audition on. I had to do it
yeah,
on trumpet.
yeah.
I got an interesting story about that. I hold on a second. I got an issue with the dog again.
Sure.
That that um, piece on D trumpet, as you know, uh, we played every night, but we were in Sacramento one night, and we decided that we were going to park our van right under the hotel awning, right in the front door with the lights on it. And for whatever reason, a bunch of us decided to leave our horns in the. Yeah. We came out the next day. This was 1989. We came out the next day, and I was walking up to the van. I said, "You guys, who broke the window? Because there's glass all over the ground." And pretty soon we realized that, yeah, this is someone broke into the van. They took my Schilke triple case with my C, my pick, and my E and D. They took Whiff's D flat and his flugelhorn, and they took Mike Levine's trombone. So the point of the story is that the next day I called Schilke. A couple of days later, I called Schilke and I said, "Do you have any? I need to get a new horn. Can you buy?" What was I trying to do? I think I was asking about. Oh, someone stole. I said someone stole my horn. Has anyone called and tried to buy E flat bell for that thing in slides? Yeah, just the other day someone called and we told them. It says it's not like we have a barrel of bells and we just send one out to you. We have to hand fit those things. And of course, they were going to watch and make sure that this person, if they called back, we could find out who it was. And of course, they never did. So to this day, I'm convinced some little kid came to school with a D trumpet for band. Now we had to. There was a guy named Richie Clendenin in Fresno State who gave us all horns for that concert that night, and we kind of made it through until Yamaha got us some horns because it was a Yamaha group anyway. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine that happening. You know, it's one thing, and probably different mouthpiece, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if I can't remember that situation exactly, but it was weird. But you know, it wasn't that. It seems like it wasn't that big of a deal, and you know, we knew the show so well. It doesn't really matter what horn you put up. I mean, of course, that's been what is that? I don't know how many years ago that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, 31, right? Feeling old now, right?
But you're right. There's been since I left the group after 9 months. I wanted to go back and get my master's done and start my doctorate, and then had a few more players, and then a lot of those players moved on and formed the rhythm and brass.
Yep.
And since then, I know there's a lot of turnover in the Dallas brass, but they're still going and doing things. But yeah, there's a lot of people that have played in that group that really are.
Yeah. And any stories you want to share other than the getting your horn stolen?
Oh,
yeah. I'm half serious but half kidding. I'm not going to pressure you into.
No, I mean, it's a group that had a lot of personality in it. But then again, at the time I was young and I was willing to accept any kind of not criticism but suggestion. I wasn't one to really be saying I need to do it this way. I was definitely in full learning mode and learning from a bunch of pros.
Yeah,
because there were great players in the group. We had a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. Maybe if I think of something funny about that group, I'll bring it up during time. But
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We did do a great recording. I thought with the group.
Christmas album.
Yeah. They came to us. And we've got these. I don't know how many 12 arrangements by. It was sponsored by Word Music, and they said we want to record these. So we started rehearsing them on the road. It's really kind of. It was all sacred stuff, no secular music, but it was kind of Hollywoodish at the time. It was pretty cool, but now you listen to it and it's real, In fact, I hear it every time we go down to Silver Dollar City in Branson at Christmas time. They're playing it on the radio, and I'm thinking. Yeah. But we recorded that thing in like 2 days in Dallas, and it came out pretty good. And I still got a bunch of copies. I give them to people. People really still like it. So I have arrangements myself, and our quintet plays a few of them every now and then. So
yeah,
that was kind of a fun thing to do.
So you said then you came back and finished or started your doctorate, right?
Came back and started my doctorate, and let's see. I think that off and on, I lived in Dallas. After I finished my coursework, then I met my wife, and we lived in Dallas, which is only 40 miles from Denton. And that's when I was done with my coursework and I was working on my dissertation and recitals and teaching about 65 kids a week in the colony. The colony is a suburb of Dallas. If you're a graduate student or a trumpet player in the Metroplex, which is Dallas, Fort Worth, and Denton, you can teach as many students as you want. There's work there for you.
Wow.
And you can teach them right in the school, right during the school day. And so I did that pretty much as a living while I was finishing my doctorate, which was brutal. I told myself, if I ever get a college job, I'm not teaching. I'm not going to have an outside private studio except for maybe a few kids because it wore me down.
Yeah.
It's a lot of teaching. But I also learned a lot from that because I taught a lot of beginners. And I think when you teach beginners and you have to revisit how to make a sound on a trumpet and explain to someone else the fundamentals of film production,
right,
you can't help but benefit from that yourself.
Yeah.
That was really, really valuable. So I did that, and then off and on during that, I was taking auditions. I was still thinking for a time I was going to win an orchestra job. And I think I actually, knowing what I know about that now, I don't think I was ever really a real serious contender for that, although I had some success right before I got my college job. Made the finals in a couple smaller orchestras like San Antonio, and I made the finals of a Marine band in the President's Own.
Yeah.
But then right after that, I applied for this job and was lucky enough to get an interview and get this job, and I've been here ever since. I got here in '96. This will be my 25th year.
Wow! Congratulations.
Finally, I'm eligible for full retirement right now. This is my years of service, and my age combined equals 80. So it's all gravy from here on.
Yeah. So you really knew early on you wanted to teach.
I think so. I don't know that I was admitting that. I was still thinking, I'd done some playing. I was kind of intrigued by being a performer, but I also didn't like the kind of, I don't know what you call it, a transient culture of that, moving around all the time and being unsure about health insurance and this and that. I really like, a lot of people that know me know that I don't know if I'm controlling, but I like order in my life. And that's important to me, routine and having things go a certain way. I think that's why I decided not to go into public school teaching, because when I student taught, I saw what it was like on a Friday night in the marching band, and I thought, chaos is not my strong point. And you have to, as a teacher, you have to be willing to be flexible and just take it all as it comes, because it's going to come from every direction. And I like what I'm doing now because it's a little bit more structured and there's not so many surprises. And I try to pass it on to my students, how to be organized and how to be in control of what you're doing, and have them determine the outcomes based on their work rather than just let it happen. Whatever happens, happens. So that's why I chose, I think, to be a college teacher. And I think I probably wanted to all along. And I admired so much my undergraduate teacher, Denny Schneider, and my doctoral professor, Leonard Candelaria.
Yeah.
I watched them, and to this day, every time I make a decision, whether it's in my teaching or my playing or ITG, now I think back to what they did when I saw them. I saw Leonard running a conference when I was in my lesson. The phone would ring 3 times, and he was president of. And so I really rely on the things he did, and I still call him for advice.
So, trumpet influences as you're coming up through the ranks, middle school, high school. Who were you listening to? Were you another Maynard Ferguson? Yeah.
Maynard Ferguson. I had a book called the Jazz Stylings of Maynard Ferguson, and it had all these tunes written out. And I tried to play those in my room, and then I'd get lightheaded and play that. I had all Maynard's albums. Chuck Mangione.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I listened to a lot of Chicago. I think, let's see, early on then in undergraduate, this is dating me, but my first CD I got when I was a sophomore in college, my parents got me a Sony Discman, which is one of those.
Oh yeah.
Killer. And
yeah.
I made a styrofoam cushion for it so I could have it in my car so it wouldn't skip.
Well, they skipped all the time.
I know, but it was this. And my first CD was the Empire Brass, the Bach for brass, I think.
Oh,
No, it was, yeah, I think it was Bach for brass. I think that was my first CD. But then I remember when Winton's first, talking about it at school at Nebraska, when Winton's dual albums came out that won Grammys for him. So right then is when those things were happening. I was still buying albums, of course. Um, I tell that to my students now, what it took to get an album of something you wanted to listen to back in the early 80s. And what we went through to listen to things and how they have it on their phone now on Apple Music or something, and they don't bother to listen to it.
right.
It's strange, but so I listened to lots of Winton, and of course I got into learning about Maurice Andre. At my first ITG, I heard a very young Håkan Hardenberger. I remember walking into the lobby of the hotel in Albuquerque where the conference was, and he was down in the lobby playing with a chamber group, and he must have been, I think we're the same age, so he would have been early 20s, and I was astounded at what I was hearing from the guy that was so young. Just excited to hear, and to be next to, people always talk about ITG being next to somebody looking at music and realizing it's Doc Severinsen or it's
Right.
Charlie Schluter or something like that. Just talking to him like buds. So those are the people I listen to. I love Tower of Power, all the horn bands, Earth, Wind and Fire. And then I got into listening to orchestral music. I remember I bought a Chicago Schulte box set of the Brahms symphonies. So yeah, those are pretty much my main influences. I listen to a lot of people. I'm never a big jazz player, but I love jazz. I listen. What I wore out in undergraduate school was the Al Jarreau album called Jarreau, which had the L.A. horns on it. Chuck, Jerry Hay, and those guys. I wore that thing out because every track was just killing horns. I think I broke that cassette. My students don't know what a cassette is.
Yeah. Can you imagine, just for a second, having them to say, okay, I want you to go to the listening library and check out this LP, and then go to the listening room, right, and get headphones that are probably, hadn't been disinfected for however many years, and the foam's worn off on the headset, and they got to sit and listen to a scratchy record,
Right.
But
I tell them that. I do tell them that, and I tell them you had to go in there, and as soon as you ran over there and got set up, that you had to look back at the person in there, and they would put the album on back there in the booth, and you were at a carol, so that you have to look back and say, okay, now put it on, and they put it on, and when you wanted to hear it again, you had to run back over there and have them go back to that band. It was a process, but I spent a lot of time down there listening, and I think it was because I wanted to. A lot of it was just pleasure listening.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my students to do that too. But.
Yeah. Well, and you're right, though. It's so easy. We all have in the palm of our hand millions of tunes, access to millions of, maybe not millions of artists, maybe so, but they still seem to find an excuse not only to not listen, but if they do listen, they don't even pay attention to who it was.
Oh, right.
Right. So what trumpet players you listen to? Oh, I listened to, the Hindemith. Well, who was playing? Well, I don't know.
Sometimes they say, that was some kid's junior recital at some school. I don't know. That's what you chose?
Right.
The other day, I love podcasts. I walk my dog twice a day, and the podcasts are the best for walking. But I also listen to music, and the other day, I finally got Apple Music, and I pulled up Sergei Nakaryakov's new album, Vidmung. I don't know if you've heard.
It's gorgeous.
I don't think I've ever, even by his standards, it's unbelievable. And mostly just the musicality. You forget about the trumpet playing for a while, because at first you think some of this stuff you can't do on the trumpet, or I'm not familiar with that kind of trumpet playing myself. But the music is just stunning. And they all have that ability. Now, every one of them has some kind of app, or Apple Music, or Pandora, or whatever they use. You can listen all the time. And I'll catch them in the hallway coming down with their headphones on. And I said, what are you listening to? It might be some rap, or it's some, or I'm thinking, you ought to just mix in a little trumpet playing once in a while so you know what you want to sound like.
Right.
That's pretty critical.
Yeah.
We're working on it. It's tough.
Yeah. So you had mentioned finishing up last semester, you had assigned them, to listen to some trumpet players. I'm actually trying that this semester. Each week I've assigned an artist, but not a specific tune. They're supposed to find something by that artist, and then they have to listen actively because I don't want to just know who and what ensemble. I want to know, tell me, like describe, give me a description of what's going on in the piece,
Right.
and some subjective things on there. But I want them to listen. I want them to really listen
You
and
know,
know about it.
I did that last semester. There was I don't know if you saw this, but the New York Philharmonic a few years ago, they had their opening gala concert was available streaming. It was Mahler 5. It's a stunning performance. So I said, I made them an assignment, you have to watch this. And so I did a lot of things. I sent them the music, also the principal trumpet part, and I asked them, how many different key changes are there, notated in the music. And it wasn't all questions that were really very deep, but it was questions that they had to answer. They were going to have to listen to the whole thing. And I asked them how many players were used. Okay, what were even to the point where I say, okay, what were the finishes on their instruments? Because the fourth was playing a raw brass horn, Chris was playing silver, someone else had a gold-plated horn, and who was playing on which movements, and
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things. That was the point of that, was to get them to listen to the whole thing and not scan through it and try to figure it out.
Right.
But that was, and a lot of them I think really did watch it and really enjoyed it, because that's some of the best orchestral trumpet playing I think I've heard, just from the standpoint of musicality and efficiency. That's the cool thing, when the kids can see someone doing something that is so impressive, but this guy is seemingly do it with little effort. That's so important for them to see that is possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm doing some things this year. I'm going to have many of them don't know a lot of the players that we know. I have to introduce them to Doc Severinsen. I show them videos all the time when I describe what hand vibrato is, because I'm a product of hand vibrato. All my teachers taught hand vibrato,
Mm-hmm.
and I still do it. And I do a little bit of both, but I'll do a lot of hand vibrato. And I said, there's one guy that really could do this, and I'll show them Doc just rocking that thing, and they're like, "Who's Doc Severinsen?" Boy, pretty quick.
Exactly.
But I give them assignments, a whole list of things they need to look up. And who is this person? Who's the principal trumpet in the LA Philharmonic? Uh, Give me one link to a video of his playing and stuff like that. So, if they're going to be on the internet, I want them going out and finding some information that
Yeah.
things they need to know.
Absolutely. And see, that's just it. Is they don't know that they need to know it yet. It was Brandon Ridenauer. I was talking to him, and he said Ray Mace used to just, stack his assignments. It was ridiculous, the amount. He said he was pushing him. He goes, he's talking about his students now, and I'm thinking that's exactly what you need. You have to be pushed to see what's possible, and that's how you make progress. Is
Right.
if everything's easy, you know, where's the sense of fulfillment or progression?
Right. If it was easy, what my teacher used to tell me, he said, if it was impossible, nobody could do it. If it was easy, anybody could.
Mm,
Most of us fall somewhere in the middle there.
yeah,
And most people, when you challenge them, they respond.
yeah,
If you do it in a respectful and pleasant way,
yeah,
they'll take that challenge and go with
yeah.
it.
So, you have any etudes that still kick your butt?
Oh yeah, lots of Charliers. I've got my
Yeah,
favorite person. I think everyone has their. Who was it saying this? I think someone was saying the other day, everyone has like 11 Charliers that they play. Everyone knows the same 11 or something
right.
like that.
And it's not fair that Hokon's coming out and hopefully going to make it to 36. But I mean, it's not fair that he plays them as well as he plays them.
He just doesn't struggle at all. Yeah, Charliers, there's some of those that I am constantly working on. That dang number, what is it, 16? The double tongue one?
16's double tongue, right? 18's triple tongue. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
every time I pull that back out, I sound pretty good on this. I get about 3/4 of the way through, and then I teach a lot of books. I teach out of the Venettelbosch book.
I like that book.
The younger kids, I use Small and Bousquet, but then we use Venettelbosch and Charlier. Let's see what else I use. I like to use some more lesser known books like the Bach Gisandi. That may be well known. The Berdiev Etudes. So those are some of the ones I use. But I start my kids out with stuff like the small etudes. I think they're good music.
Yeah.
And they address a lot of different a lot of different aspects of technique that we can kind of dig into. So
Yeah.
they expose different things. I think music needs to be good music that you're working on in lessons, but um, it also has to serve to challenge you on certain technical aspects. I also like to use I don't know if you know these, the Guy Lecour 100 etudes. They were originally for tenor saxophone, I think, but he reworked them. And it's a little book. It's like a half-page book, and they're very short. They're maybe 5 or 6 lines, and it's 2 books of 50. I got these in undergraduate. Denny Schneider uses these. Michael Anderson still uses them too.
Mm-hmm.
But every one of them is a unique musical statement of some kind, and they're all very, very diverse. And it's kind of nice because they're shorter. It's not always an endurance challenge. It's more of a musical challenge, and it's not long. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'll take my kids through those, and we'll play those and try to check them off, and then have them transpose them up a step or down a step or something like that. Work our way through that book. Sometimes you can get them 2 or 3 of them at a time. So
Yeah.
the name is Lecour, Lacour.
Good. I came across one. I don't know if it was originally for trumpet, Gallet etudes, or
I,
maybe it was for horn originally. I
I
think.
think so. I've seen that book. I don't know it very well.
Yeah, some really great stuff in there. Long, and I appreciate the ones that you got to keep the horn on, like Saint Jacome. You don't get a chance to take the horn off your face for a while. On
I think
those.
that in teaching, I think it's always this challenge that you don't want to give them something that's either so technically difficult or so endurance heavy that they can't get past that to making music and thinking about the very simple concept of tone production, which may or may not be simple, but it should be simple.
Yeah.
And so I always try to start them on something simple so they can make a good sound, and then they can expand on that. I think that's important to have a success rather than always worrying about whether they're going to bonk out at 3-4 story 30. So, but every student's different. Boy, I've got a real wide range of students. Some that come in with never having had a trumpet lesson, just some that come in from like the St. Louis and Kansas City high schools that are actually fairly accomplished already. I've actually got a couple younger kids right now that are really very well prepared and kind of ready to roll. So it's been fun. It's challenging me to do different things with freshmen than I normally do. So
Yeah. So here you are at the top of ITG, and you've been involved for a while, I know. What do you see the state of trumpetness or trumpetdom, whatever the DOM, not DUMB, not trumpet dumb? Do you see are we in pretty good shape as a community?
as
Or,
ITG or just trumpet in general?
or sure, both or more.
Yeah, I think there are so many more opportunities now. I mean, I know that there's a lot of challenges for live music, but I don't think I've ever been able to access more different types of music using trumpets than ever before. Now that may be because we have access to that on the internet. Maybe long ago we just didn't know about it because we couldn't open the browser up and go look for it. But it seems like there's so much going on with trumpet right now, which is fantastic. And as an ITG, as a leader of ITG, that's part of our mission, is to embrace the improvement of trumpet playing in every way. And so when people say, well, ITG, you should do something like this, or ITG should do it because someone else is doing that. I said, well, I think that's fantastic that someone else is doing that. ITG has got a very specific thing that we do. That doesn't mean we can't grow, and it doesn't mean we can't branch out. But ITG is a very specific thing to me, and as a leader of the organization, it's my job to protect that and to develop that and improving it. It's basically three-pronged. I mean, we've got our conference, which is the defining aspect of ITG as far as I'm concerned, because that's what lets everyone know what we do. In general, it's the most diverse conference for trumpet in the world, like no other. Our journal is the only academic journal for trumpet in the world, and I think it's the best of its kind. I think it's fantastic.
It is. It's terrific.
And then, and I want to mention something about that, and then it's really exciting. I'll tell you here first. And then our website, now, up until now, our website has been largely informational. It's a place you go to join. It's a place you go to find out more about ITG. You want to find out about competition guidelines. But we're expanding the value of that, too. And one of the exciting things is that very, very soon now, I've made this a priority, and our editor and our webmaster, Michael Anderson and Peter Wood, have been working like crazy to get this done, but very soon you as an ITG member will be able to access the website, log in, and you will have access to the entire ITG Journal Archive on the website
Nice.
in a flipbook format. You might have seen the March issue we put out for everybody. It's going to be like that. Now, you won't be able to download all the entire archive. Current members will still be able to download the current year, but you will have access to be able to read everything back to 1975.
Oh,
And I'm telling you, it's really pretty cool stuff if you go back
yeah.
in terms of see what was going on. And that's going to be great for some young kids too, because many of them don't have, but they're just joining. They have no way to access that early stuff. And now they can go back and read to their heart's content and find out everything. So I think that's one of the things that some organizations have had. And we wanted to add it. And we soon found out that it was a little more difficult, a little more complicated than we thought. We think very soon we're going to have that available for members. And I think that's a very cool thing that makes our website even more relevant for members and of a value. And one other thing we're going to be doing coming up probably in October, we're going to have, we haven't really advertised it yet, but it's going to be a video event of original content for everyone to come and experience free. I'm not going to tell you too much about it because it's still in the planning, and I want to reserve the right for it to change.
Oh, of course, sure.
But it'll be coming out sometime, probably October, and that's going to be free, not just to ITG members, but to everybody. And
Nice.
it's contributed to by a number of fantastic players and people all across. Everyone's been very, very giving and agreeing to donate something that's original and it's something you will have not seen before, whether it's pedagogical or it's a performance. But it's something we wanted to do kind of in addition since we weren't able to have our conference.
Yeah.
You know, our conference, we can't have a conference that's really like an ITG conference online. There's just too much about it that doesn't translate. Not to mention the technical limitations of the internet, sound quality, Wi-Fi cutting out. Who knows what can happen? But we wanted to offer something because of that, and that was actually one of our advisory committee members, Andrea Tofanelli, suggested that was his brainchild, and I thought it was a fantastic idea. So that'll be coming this fall. And hopefully, when everybody's getting back to school and getting excited again, that can add to the fun. So yeah, so I think we're in a good place. And I think there's a lot going on. I think the level of trumpet playing and performance has gone through the roof. That's largely because of technology and great teaching. There's so many more good teachers. So
it's scary good. It's scary how good the younger generation gets. It seems like if I was that good as a freshman in high school, I might have made something of myself, It's ridiculous. And yeah.
A lot of my freshmen were much better than I was when I started.
Yeah.
And I tell them that, and that seems to make them happy.
Yeah. So, hey, we can wrap up a little bit here. And any last words of wisdom that you'd like to offer? Famous last words.
Famous last words. I don't know. I think we're in a good place. I think everybody just needs to. Well, I don't know when this is going to air, so I don't know how relevant this would be.
It'll still be relevant no matter when.
I think as far as trumpet playing and music, we just need to keep encouraging as many people. If you see a young person who has some ability, as a trumpet player, if you see some young person who has some ability on the trumpet and has some interest, take the time to sit down with them and give them a free lesson. Just give, I wrote about this in one of my columns, but I think, who knows what you could change in that person's life. Some people have no opportunities, and if you can encourage someone to be involved with trumpet, that's fantastic. If you can go play taps sometime, do it for free. One time a year, go play taps for a veteran that otherwise wouldn't have a live performance. There's a lot of things we can do as trumpet players when we're so fortunate, just to do one nice thing a year for somebody that kind of promotes the trumpet. And I think if everybody does that, we can it not only is the right thing to do as a human being, but as if you're an ITG member, it's the right thing for our mission, and we want our members to do that kind of thing. So
yeah.
I guess, music has changed my life. I mean, my parents were both musicians. My dad was an oboe professor. My mom was a choral music teacher. I got started in music, but the experiences I had going to college and the things that my teacher, Leonard Candelaria, taught me and my parents taught me, and being involved in ITG, what that has done for me, that my career, I owe my career and my life to the trumpet.
Hmm.
I think that you could encourage someone else to get involved in the trumpet or music in general, and you could do the same for them. It's pretty powerful stuff, and it might not take a whole lot of effort. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Great. That was great.
Sure.
I wished I had remembered to push record at the beginning and I'd have gotten all of that.
I hope there's not dog snoring all the way through. I'm here snoring again.
Yeah, well, somebody will create a dog snoring filter that I can run run on that. But
At least it wasn't as
so
loud as it used to be.
no, it was good. It was all fine. So, well, Grant, thanks. I mean, I really appreciate the time
Fun,
and
yeah.
for the chat. This has been fun. So
Enjoy it.
good to see you.
Have a great year. Stay healthy, okay?
Likewise. We'll see you soon. I hope. All
Okay.
right. Bye.